So here we are, post-Brazilian Grand Prix, and I just have to say to Mercedes, what on earth is going on? Just after the race, Lewis Hamilton labelled the Brazilian Grand Prix as their slowest weekend of the season, and you know what? He's probably absolutely right. Just before we crack on, please make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date with any of my new content. Following on for some big words and big chat from Toto Wolff about bringing upgrades and getting over the disqualification at Austin and everything, they were an absolute shambles in Brazil. I mean, they really kind of turned up with nothing, didn't they? With Lewis coming home 8th and George DNFing, it was not a great race for them at all, and actually they were suspiciously slow, to be honest, after Hamilton got disqualified at Austin. Now the thing is, thanks to Sainz, Ferrari have now actually closed the gap on Mercedes, and the thing is as well, Mercedes actually got very, very lucky at this weekend with, Charles Leclerc's issue on the formation lap. Leclerc would absolutely have been a dead set for a podium at this race, at least, so Mercedes got off very, very lightly at the Grand Prix for sure. Thankfully for Mercedes, Leclerc is the unluckiest driver in the world right now. The Brazilian Grand Prix in general was a full kind of reputation of Mercedes season so far. Lots of big chat, lots of big words, but just under-delivering. It was just such a disappointment for them. Now we all remember how 2022 and the W13 car was supposed to be absolute rock bottom for them. It couldn't get any worse. They only got one win that season. Boo fecking who. Guess what, Mercedes? It can get worse, much worse. In fact, they're still another 8 positions behind you, so cheer up. And mysteriously, Mercedes, who are having a bad season, are being caught up by Ferrari, who are having the most absolute shonkiest season of all time. I don't know how Ferrari have managed to catch up Mercedes, but they've done it. Whilst the W13, the Mercedes 2022 car, was bad, and it was bad, it felt like the Mercedes team around it was just much more unified and together, and they were all just part of each other in this joint mission to improve and grow and overcome Red Bull and just try and finish the season as best as possible. It was like the team was kind of treating everything as kind of a small blip, and then in 2023 they'll be back to business as usual because we're Mercedes and we don't make mistakes, and it's just a tiny little hump on our journey. Except though this wasn't a blip, the 2023 car I think is better than the 2022 car, but here's the thing, the team around the current car isn't as good. And some of the arrogance coming out of Toto Wolff at the moment is amazing. It's like right now Mercedes are having a serious identity crisis and are having real trouble coming to terms that they're not this dominating team anymore. They didn't have the luxuries that they did before, and now that there's budget caps, they can't just kind of throw money at a problem and make it go away. They've got to engineer their way out of it. And as Mercedes have had lots and lots of key people leaving the team recently, they don't have the knowledge and expertise that they used to during the years of domination. You do wonder if Mercedes will ever taste the sort of success that they had before, and you do wonder about Toto Wolff as well. He recently came out in the press saying some very bad things about the W14 car, saying that he just wants to put it in the bin. It's a terrible car. He feels sorry for the drivers driving it, and he wants to kind of get things over with. I mean, Toto, you said what you said, but the people back at Brackley who have been working countless hours to try and improve your car, I'm sure are very delighted to hear you say that. Spending lots and lots of time away from their family and loved ones just to squeeze that extra millisecond out of the car for you. Yeah, I'm sure they're delighted to hear you say that. And fair play to him, just after this, Hamilton said, actually, no, there's some positive things to take away from the car. We can take some really good things from the car and put it into the 2024 one. And you kind of think, yeah, he understands motivation and people and how to move things forward. Good on him. And then after the Brazilian Grand Prix, he kind of matched what Toto was saying and said, yep, I can't wait to stop driving this bloody thing. I mean, let's not forget, Toto Wolff came into the team after the initial groundwork had been laid by Ross Brawn and Michael Schumacher, and those are some pretty sturdy foundations to be starting from. This sounds mental, but Toto Wolff is the kind of guy who would play FIFA or Football Manager career mode as Man City or PSG. Of course you'll succeed because there's tons of money and everything great about the team has already been built up around you. It's just kind of plug in and play, isn't it? It would be very interesting to see how Toto would act if Mercedes plunged even further down the grid in 2024. And even if he's up to the task of managing a team that isn't dominant and is kind of scrapping for you know, not just to get onto the podium, but just scrapping for like 3rd, 4th and 5th position as well. Will he be up to the task? You know, pulling everyone together during the bad times like had to do at McLaren and Ferrari and Aston Martin and teams like that, really kind of scraping things together. And I just don't think that Toto Wolff is up to that. You know, what he's kind of saying in the press and everything at the moment, in his mind, sounds motivational, but it just comes across as just kind of arrogant. And I can also imagine Toto's a bit nervous on the commercial front as well, because all the sponsors of the Mercedes team have coughed up all this cash on the basis that Mercedes are going to be regularly winning races, hitting performance targets, and getting exposure out there from being on the podium. And right now, that is just not happening. You know, all these companies are probably right now paying world championship type fees to be on a team and a car that is barely getting onto the podium. To put it into perspective, Mercedes have only been on the podium 8 times this season. I'll count Austin because he was still on the podium, Hamilton, wasn't he? But when you compare that to 32 times in 2019, you know, that's a huge gulf. You know, if I was paying these 2019 level rates to get the grid gap logo on the side of the Mercedes car and they weren't performing or have been performing as they are, yeah, some serious questions would have to be asked. So you can imagine Toto's not just feeling the pressure on the track, he's probably getting it in the ear on the commercial front as well. And just to add further damage, Mercedes are currently 2nd in the Constructors' Championship. However, their customer teams, McLaren and Aston Martin, are looking far more competent and confident than the Works team right now. McLaren and Aston just seem to have accepted who they are and what they are as a team much better than Mercedes have. McLaren are just oozing confidence right now, and Lando is at the top of his game, and Oscar is just growing and maturing race by race. It's fantastic to watch. And Aston Martin should be proud of the season no matter what. This time last year, they were in 7th place. By the way, that's the same position Williams are fighting for right now, so they were down that far. They've racked up some podiums. Alonso's been an absolute star for them. Stroll has kind of fallen off, but recently showing glimmers of hope, I guess. So things are looking a lot brighter for Aston. And McLaren and Aston have both had really rough points in the season where the car has seriously let them down, but neither of them has been as savage and damning about the car that the way Toto has. Now, whilst I do feel sorry for the staff at Mercedes, and I don't know if they're wondering if Toto is asleep at the wheel or whatever, but Hamilton and Russell are the face of the team, and they have to deal with the shortcomings up front and on a regular basis. And from what I understand, the W14 has been developed more towards Lewis Hamilton's liking and his driving style, and that has increased his performance a little bit. However, by steering things more towards Hamilton's liking, it has caused Russell's performance to drop off massively. He is not at one with the car at all right now. The car last year, which was designed probably a bit more neutrally, suited Russell a lot better. Now, I did a video on Russell a while back and how he's dealing with his time at Mercedes, and I know if it's a good or a bad thing, but he seems to be suggesting lots of ideas to the team and tactics during the race and things like that. But it seems that Mercedes just kind of aren't paying attention to him. Now, this could be because some of the ideas he suggested are more bad ones than good ones. But the fact is that they just don't seem to be acknowledging kind of anything he does. And also, Mercedes are strangely reluctant to use any kind of team orders at all on either cars. And this is very strange, especially when you consider that Mercedes implemented team orders to an enormous effect during their dominant years when Bottas was alongside Hamilton. Now, this could be just a team thing, or what this would tell me is that the rivalry between Hamilton and Russell is still in full swing, and neither of them are willing to give an inch to each other, especially when it comes to exchanging positions. But following on from all this, George and Lewis are going to want to put the season to bed as soon as possible. They've got 2 more races coming up in Las Vegas and Abu Dhabi, and they are going to have to really kind of put in a shift now, because they've got to defend their 2nd place against Ferrari, and the gap has now actually closed. Now, in fairness, things would have to go catastrophically wrong at Mercedes for them to lose their 2nd place, I think. The way Ferrari have been recently, you can't count on both cars to finish high up in the points or even on the podium on a regular basis. So in order for this to happen, Mercedes really going to have to ball things up, and Ferrari are going to have to pull out the stops completely in these last 2 races. Fortunately for Mercedes, Ferrari are probably one of the most inconsistent teams on the grid right now, so is probably not keeping them up at night, but it's certainly something that they've probably got their eye on. And to boost this even more, it seems now their second place in the Drivers' Championship is now out of Hamilton's reach. So in fairness, they should be putting everything they can into the Constructors' Championship fight, and this might even mean using team orders and having to give way for each other. And this is what Lewis and George need to realise. At this point of the season, there is now an expectation for them both to literally carry out anything that the team asks of them to secure their second place in the championship, and also the prize money and prestige that goes with it. But even after all these things, I don't kind of see Mercedes having much of a performance improvement in 2024. You've still got the factor of perhaps the car being designed more around Hamilton and Russell feeling the negatives of this and it directly affecting his driving style. Both the drivers are contracted until 2025, and I suppose Lewis might get to the point where he starts thinking about retirement, but Russell, he's got to be thinking, is Mercedes the place for me? Do you know what? After 2025, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a massive overhaul of the team where you might get 2 new drivers, maybe a new team principal, and just an entirely fresh outlook on their F1 direction, and perhaps even a new identity, because I think there needs to be some sort of a cut-off point now from their period of domination to what they are now, because it seems like Mercedes are still trying to lean on this era and identify with this era, but that's a long time ago now. It's been ages since they've tried to do that. So I think they're going to have to cut the cord on that and focus on where they're going to be in the future, kind of like how McLaren had to do a few years ago. But this race was seen as a new low for Mercedes, and it's going to be really interesting to see how the season plays out now, where they end up, and ultimately what Toto Wolff, George Russell and Lewis Hamilton has to say about everything. It's going to be really exciting to see what words are said after the end of the season. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like, share and subscribe. I'm Paul, and thank you so much for watching.